What if I told you there was an unexpected piece of hardware hiding inside some of these routers? A PCMCIA card, or PC card as they were later rebranded to in 1995. PCMCIA cards can be thought of as a sort of precursor to USB, an industry-defined standard allowing flash memory, modems, Wi-Fi, and all sorts of other peripherals to be plugged into laptops and computers. Here's a couple of PC card examples. Now, it's my understanding that manufacturers such as Linksys were already making these PCMCIA Wi-Fi cards, and so they would just make a slot inside their early routers for those to go in. We'll crack into my Linksys collection to hunt one down, probably lose some driver battles to Linux trying to get it to work, and Windows 7 won't cut us any breaks either. Let's get into it. I have a few specimens for our adventure today. Now, I'm pretty sure some of these have a PC card inside, but I'm not sure which one. So my thinking is we're going to crack open the oldest and physically largest ones I've got. That leaves us with a few options. This, and this are all BEFW11S4s. And you can see they don't even have the Cisco branding on them. So these were likely produced before Cisco bought Linksys in 2003. Linksys like to make things smaller over time, so I'm suspecting that this smaller one that has identical model to these bigger ones here is actually going to be newer, so we won't bother with that one, which leaves us with the two big guys here. Now, it is possible that these WRT54Gs, these wireless G routers, have PC cards inside them. And in fact, if you recognize this Linksys stuff, you very likely were using one of these 54Gs back in the day, because Linksys was still making wireless G PC cards. And it's possible that, some variant of these without the nice edge here is actually inside some of these routers. But we're going to try our luck with some B stuff first because it's older, and that seems most likely to have what we want. Despite having the same model number and form factor, there's actually quite a bit of difference between these two units. So we've got the 2.4 gigahertz B advertised a little more prominently on this one, and it's just a little simpler. It calls itself a wireless access point router. This thing is talking about instant broadband series, ether fast wireless access point. It advertises itself as a cable DSL router. So yeah, quite a bit of difference here. Here they are from the top, and the existence of the Linksys logo here is pretty much a dead giveaway when you're glancing at these that Cisco wasn't involved. So when Cisco bought them, they dropped that and just kept this original Linksys lettering. Fun fact for you. And I also noticed the antennas on this one on the left have a metal base. So that's a metal connector there. None of the other antennas have that, including this. Let me pull one off for you. So despite being roughly the same age, that's plastic. So I'm thinking this one on the left, given that it's got the better hardware and sort of the older sounding marketing on the front of it, is going to be our best bet. This is probably the oldest one. It's probably worth noting that this one is the only one I have that has these really nice metal connectors. None of these do that. They all have the plastic ones, except for if you bought this high gain kind of range extender kit. They're obviously much longer antennas. They've got the nice metal on the end, but that of course would have been like a luxury upgrade, so to speak. So yeah, the rest are just plastic. So the first thing we do, of course, is take the antennas off. I can't get over how nice these ones are. And then there's some nuts on the back of here. Those spin right off really easily on both sides. Then we void our warranty really quick here. I'm going to give you some insider info. These rubber feet, just as these things are aging, just fall out. I don't remember that being an issue back in the early 2000s and mid 2000s when I was using the 54G units. They have the same affliction. All the feet just fall out. This one is already missing one. The remaining feet on this one aren't too loose yet, but I don't know if the material's like shrinking as it ages or something, but it's really common that they'll just fall right out and you don't even need to use a tool or they're already missing. The front feet are hiding two tiny little screws. And then I think you kind of just manhandle it a little bit and eventually you can get it to, the antennas just fall into the case, the antenna connectors. I'm going to do this very carefully and I'll be back. Yeah, it doesn't take much. You can kind of just push like this and it'll separate without breaking anything or losing any plastic bits. At this point, we need to get the shield off, and it's going to be a little bit annoying. There's just little tiny globs of solder all over the place. It's not like a C64 or something where you can snip it off with snips. So I'll have to use the wick, I think, to get that off. This is interesting. Some QA markings actually in Sharpie and pencil, manually written. Some sort of verification pass they probably did at the factory. Quick look at the front. So I'm going to get these little solder blobs off. If you aren't familiar with solder wick, you heat it up and apply it to solder, and it quite literally wicks the solder into this braid. And it's not my preferred method of desoldering, but it's a really nice way to clean work up after you've desoldered with, you know, the little pump gun or something. And I think it's kind of my best bet right here, but it's going to be exceedingly frustrating to get this off, I think, because even when I wick this solder out, there's still going to be a pretty good bond, I think, on most of these points. But we'll start with this, and then we'll start getting some pry tools under it and see where that gets us. This one's particularly tricky. It's way back in there. Oh, look at that, though. It's not actually connected. Shipped that way from the factory. There's the solder wicking into the braid. Okay. Of course, even after taking the solder off, it's still basically fully attached. So my thinking here is we'll start getting some tools under here, and I'll pry up. I'm not particularly concerned about hurting this. I'm not going to put it back on anyway, so it's just for shielding of some sort. I'll let you know how I get along. Some of the points do actually come to the other side of the board, so you can see where a little metal tab from this thing is poking out here, but none of them actually have solder in them. So all of them are free. And I can't figure out how to get this plastic piece off of the board to get a better look. It's got a simple clipping mechanism that I can't seem to get it to budge. Oh, we're getting somewhere. Look at that. I've resorted to taking the iron and sort of heating it up as I pry up with some other tool. It's kind of hard to film. We're very close. I think if I just heat this up, it's off. And look at that. We have a wireless B PCMCIA card. There's the slot it's connecting into. It's got a little daughter board for, the antennas. Yes, I wasn't sure how many of these I was going to have to crack open until I found one, and this old one proved to be the right choice. The next question is, does it come out easily? We have to find out for science. Oh, it's in this little tray. Okay, I'm gonna poke around a little bit. I don't want to break anything. This is fascinating. It's not like a socket. It's just some pins bent at a 90-degree angle, and the card receives them. That is fascinating. Look how they did that. Wow. I think I need to get the board off this plastic backing because I need to unsolder this little case, or this little holder that the daughter board is in. And I think this is why I couldn't just slide it off. One of the posts has a screw in it. You know, I don't even know if this router works. I probably should have tested it first. There we go. Well, I don't feel like desoldering those. And I do want to put this back together, and that would pretty much make it so it guarantees I would never put it back together. So I'm just going to bend these little holding retainer clip things out of the way. Okay. Yep, so now you can see it's lifting up. Can I slide? Yeah, look at this. Whew. There it is, my wireless B PCMCIA card. Now we get to plug it into a computer, and it almost definitely won't work because it won't have drivers. We'll see, I guess. Here's that pin setup. Fascinating. I suppose that's just what it looks like in a laptop, just maybe a little sturdier. Really cool. Now we just need a computer to put this Linksys PC card in, and I think this IBM ThinkPad T60 is going to do the trick for us today. Andy of Sunfire V440 donation fame sent this my way a couple months ago, and I've been looking for an excuse to try it out. This thing came out in 2006. It's got a Intel Centrino Duo mobile inside, 32-bit. I think this is the 60 gigabyte hard drive model, so this would have set you back like $1,400 or something back in 2006. And this is a slightly historically significant ThinkPad in that it was the very last one that still had the IBM ThinkPad branding. So Lenovo was fully involved in building these. I mean, you can even see the logo right there. And the T61, the one right after this, is when they dropped the IBM logo. I think this machine tells a pretty interesting story about old meets new, at least in terms of mid-2000s technologies. It's got a built-in modem, Ethernet, of course, audio, USB, and of course, the PC card slot, which we'll be using today. And on the other side, more USB slots, a DVD-ROM, really nice. And under here, got the hard drive bay, and inside, this thing has a SATA interface, along with the cutest little spinning rust 60 gigabyte drive you've ever seen. Looks like it was manufactured May 07. It's a Hitachi, 7200 RPM, so this would have been pretty nice for the day. We're going to upgrade this. This machine works just fine. It's got Linux on it, but I think a really nice upgrade will be throwing an SSD in there, so we'll try that for fun, see if we can get it working. And then I'm really excited to try out my completely legitimate copy of Windows 7 Pro 64-bit that I bought back in college. Somehow this has survived, like many, many moves. But anyway, we're screwed. I need a 32-bit version, so we'll fire up the old DVD burner setup. And I know I could just use a USB boot and all that. That's no fun. It's more fun this way. And I've actually got a 32-bit Windows 7 Pro key on the back of this thing, so, you know, we're legitimate. This would have shipped with Windows XP, of course, and more contemporary might have been, you know, Vista on here. But I've been thinking about Windows 7. It came out in 2009, so this thing would have ran it, and of course it has the sticker on the back, so that's what we're going to go with. Let's get this hard drive in. The caddy had these rubber bumpers on there. There's nothing that actually holds it in other than the friction of these rubber bumpers. It's actually quite hard to take out. I thought I was going to snap this little pull handle they had on there. So I think we need to get this tray off. Simple enough. And the question is, when I get all this back together, is it going to line up like the other one did? I wonder if it's going to have trouble with a 1 terabyte drive. I don't think so, but we'll see. Here we go. I can't really tell if it's in there. We'll find out when we power it up, I guess. Yeah, just the rubber in there holds that in. No screws or anything. I took this apart months ago, so I'm going to go hunt down that screw. Whenever I'm experimenting and taking something apart randomly, and I'm not going to mess with it for a while, I kind of put the screws over here, and I'm not seeing it. This might be it. That might work. That didn't work. Fix this the old-fashioned way for now. And I'll have to hunt that screw down. Let's get this thing plugged in. It's got some custom speed mods. Don't worry about that. There we go. It does hold a charge, believe it or not. Let's see what we're working with here. See if it recognizes that drive, I suppose. Media test failure. Cannot boot from any device. There we go. We're in good shape though. CD-ROM drive is first, then USB, then that drive I just installed. And it does see that it's 1000 gigabytes, 1 terabyte, so I think we're going to be okay. I guess I don't actually know if this drive works, but I assume it does. Okay, Control-Delete. It's making driving noises. Let's see what happens. There we go. There is something therapeutic or nostalgic about installing Windows, any version of Windows. I mean, back when you were doing this back in the day, this might have been like your only computer. So if something went wrong, you couldn't just like go on Lycos or whatever and do a search. You figured it out by trial and error by yourself usually, or if you were really desperate, you like went to a buddy's house and used their computer to go on the internet. You couldn't exactly pull out your cell phone. I mean, that wasn't going to help you. Beautiful. I haven't installed Windows 7 in a very, very long time. Might eat my words about USB being less fun. It's been grinding away at 0% there for like 5 minutes. I was just about to give up. Then we hit 1%, 10 minutes in. I might still give up. I'm making a USB right now. Oh, we're cruising. We're sticking with the DVD. We're in. Let's see what we're working with here. Yeah, 4 gigs of RAM. That's pretty good. And it sees the whole hard drive, of course. Let's see if we can improve our resolution a little bit. Maybe something like that. Yes. Woohoo. Yeah, this is a nice little laptop. What version of IE did this thing come with? 8. So of course this thing already has Wi-Fi capabilities. It's a little redundant, but that's not the point. So I'm going to shut this down for a second and show you something. So here's the slot. Here's another PC card, just a flash card from a Cisco router. And when you push it in all the way, it's flush, and then this little guy helps you get it out, right? Pretty simple. Now, the problem is, this one can't go in all the way because of the shoulders on the daughter card. So you can see there's overlap there, and it's going to stop it from going in all the way. I am, however, making some contact, so I haven't tried it. These are hot swappable. So let's power it back up and see what it does. Otherwise, we might have to get a little creative. So I haven't installed any of the Lenovo drivers or anything. I'm kind of hoping it's smart enough to already have the PCMCIA slot drivers. We'll see. So I'm going to slide it in. I don't think it sees it. So a couple problems. Might need the drivers for this slot. We'll check Device Manager in a second, or it's actually not making it in all the way, of course. Windows does see the adapter bus, so it's a physical connection issue that we're going to have to solve. For the record, the adapter is working. You could hear it kind of complain real faintly, and then when I eject it, it doesn't understand this card. We know it's gone out. So this thing works. So I was hoping this daughter board just pulled out, but I was sort of wiggled it and yanked on it, a little bit, and it seems like it's sort of one circuit board that they've encased here, and I don't want to risk prying this up because that can be a pretty destructive process. But I'm looking at these little ears, and they just lead to empty pads. So we've got traces coming into them, and the pads don't go anywhere. So I'm going to do something maybe a little controversial. I'm going to snip them off. So I'm going to score them with a knife and then break them off. Well, if that broke it, you'll just have to forgive me. We're performing some science down here. So the dream is that this is just a consumer card that Linksys was throwing in those routers, and Windows sees it no problem. At the very least, I hope it recognizes something. What I'm expecting is recognizing nothing or something it doesn't know what to do with. So let's throw it in. It sees it. I haven't broken it entirely. Yeah, doesn't have drivers for it. Okay, but the card exists. It's called an Instant Wireless Network PC card. That's a clue. So let's go search that online. I think it's one of these. Linksys had an Instant Wireless Network PC card that they of course sold, which makes sense. They just put these in the routers and then only have to develop one thing. So what I'm going to do is hunt down drivers for this and see where we get. Internet Archive had some instant wireless drivers. Oh no, that's not good. It's funny, my Windows 11 machine could open this setup file, but Windows 7 doesn't like it. Honestly, thought I'd be avoiding all this. Going with Windows 7, thought I'd be old enough. Oh no. Well, keeping with the theme, I burnt it to a disk, and now it likes the installer. Look at this. Oh, it's got noises when you click the buttons. What are the chances of this working? It's definitely just one of these WPC 11s. So here we go. Restart. That's not good. Doesn't recognize it. All right, I've got the oldest version of the drivers I could get my hands on. Install the PC card. This is definitely an older installer. Not holding my breath. Ah, that's what the other drivers did. It doesn't see it. It won't even start if it doesn't think you have the adapter in there. Look at this icon. Real nice. So again, the adapter bus works, and it sees that it has this Instant Wireless Network PC card, but it doesn't know what to do with it. So I guess we'll try Windows XP. Well, that was a nightmare. I could not get Windows XP to install this thing. I tried different ISOs, USB, burning disks, and all the ISOs had the SATA drivers, by the way. Made sure I had the right ISO. Nothing. Tried the F5 trick when you're booting up to try to configure things. No matter what I did, it would hang on setup as starting Windows. I would leave it for 30 minutes to an hour. I've had these things take a long time to get in past that screen, but nothing. So gave up, but we've made some serious progress. This thing is running a live CD of Ubuntu 5.10 from late 2005, I think. Old breezy Badger. We've got the card in. Check this out. We can do a card control ident. It's in socket 0, instant wireless, network PC card, but a little more info. It says version 01.02, a little more information than what Windows told us. You can also do card control info and then the slot, get the same information, just presented a little differently. Now, if we do ls PCI, of course, we've gotten this far, so we know this is true, but the card bus bridge is obviously working. It can see the card. It knows it's there. Now I'm going to pull the card out, and you're going to hear it beep once, which means it knows it was removed. Okay. I'm going to put it back in. You'll hear 2 high-pitched beeps. That's this old card control system's way of telling you it thinks it's configured. Okay. Now we're going to look at dmessage, which is going to tell us some information about all the hardware changes that are going on. And here we can see it talking about this card. It's saying it's a Intersil firmware 076. It's not liking it. It's saying Intersil firmware earlier than 0.8. Several features might not be supported. And it has a station name of Prism 1. Now I've been able to find other cards that use the Prism 2 chipset from Intersil, including later versions of this Linksys instant wireless network PC card, but I don't see anything using Prism 1, just some Prism 2 examples. So I'm thinking this is a pretty old card, and I definitely couldn't find any version of the software as early as 1.02. There was only a couple versions on the archive and you saw me install them. But here's where it gets really interesting. If we issue an iwconfig, which is like ifconfig, but for wireless devices in the Linux world, it sees it. It's got a Prism 1 nickname. It knows it's got the right frequency and speed. It just doesn't have a station to connect to. So I think it's working on Linux. Could that be possible? Linux wireless networking from the early 2000s, easier than Windows? Hard to believe. Let's try to get this thing connected to a network. I could just connect it to my home network, but that wouldn't be any fun. Let's pull this other one off the stack and see if it works. This one seems incredibly unhappy. Never seen him do that before. I guess I'll try resetting it. There's a button on the back. Yeah, that one's not doing so hot. I should have pulled the card out of that one. Let's try this little guy. Yes, much healthier. Let's see if we can talk to it. This is a Windows XP machine hooked up to that router on the same default network. We might have to reset it. I don't think I've ever used that one before, so it might already be configured. And that's what it's looking like. You just press in this little button on the back for 30 seconds or so. And now we can access it. It's been reset. I think it's admin, no password. No password, no password. Just admin password. Okay. I want to say these older ones just start blasting out a network. That's right. Linksys. Let's make sure we don't have any of those in the neighborhood. Collabsys. Okay, that thing's got a wireless network going. This computer is hardwired as 192.168.1.10. So let's see if we can get that laptop online. It's been a really long time since I've used iwconfig. It's odd that it calls it ETH0. I would expect it to call it WLAN 0. So maybe that's some foreshadowing. I think you just go like this. Yeah, okay, we've got a problem. We were so close. I needed to sudo. So now it thinks ETH0 is on collabsys. ifconfig still sees nothing, but maybe that's fine. All right, 5 hours later, here's what I know. Everything's reset now. I can set an SID just like this. And if we go back, it's got it set now over an ifconfig. It sees it. It knows it has an ETH0. It's called ETH0. I was doing some research. Older devices will call themselves ETH0 even though they're wireless LAN. We can use the iwlist command. And if we say ETH0 scanning to see if it's able to scan, it says it can't. So that's clue number 1 that we're fighting with drivers right now. And now what we're going to do is try to bring that interface up and we get a connection timed out. And if we go to good old dmessage again, we're getting tons of complaints about not able to issue commands to the card, and these set codes unknown key pressed, can't enable the Mac port, all sorts of errors that really, error issuing commands. This really implies to me we're having driver issues. I tried to throw Ubuntu 4.04 on here, hoping that it might support this Intersil 076, and it just hangs. I can't get it to load or install or anything. So we're having the classic fight against device drivers. I thought about cracking this broken one open, you know, the one that was doing the diag light blink thing. Just visually, this is quite a bit newer looking, but you'll have to trust me when I say, well, first I couldn't get it open. I can't figure out how to get it apart, but I'm looking through these little vent holes and there is not a card in there. So it's definitely a different design, a more modern design. Oh yeah, and after you issue the ifconfig up to try to bring ETH0 up, it loses a ton of its settings. And you can't fix it until you physically pull the card out and put it back in again. Big mess. Well, I was actually able to get the Ubuntu 4 live CD going. Isn't this a sight for sore eyes? At least as we're struggling through this, we get to look at these old Ubuntu versions and be nostalgic about them. But it's pretty much the same story. In dmessage, it thinks it's a Hermes chipset. We're getting errors about -16 issuing command. We saw that before. It knows it's a Prism 1 chipset. It's got the same Intersil firmware earlier than 0.8, not supported. Probably our main issue here. So we're butting up against a few obstacles here. The first one is this card is just really old. So it claims, at least in the station name, that it's a Prism 1 chip. Intersil firmware version complaints about how old it is, even in this older version of Linux. There's several Linux drivers out there. One is the Aronico, that's what we're trying to use here, which should support the Prism chipsets, but I don't see anything that supports Prism 1. I only see mentions of Prism 2. So that's our biggest problem here. Another obstacle is just, you know, my will to live. I'm sure we could get a version of Linux installed on here and start messing with the drivers and playing around and finally finding an old one, assuming there is an old one that supports this older Prism chip. But it's pretty cumbersome. This is my only physical PCMCIA slot I own. So right now I've been resorting to live CDs. Ubuntu 4 was the first Ubuntu live CD. So I can only mess around so much. It's not like I can roll back a VM really easily and play around with drivers. I'm still willing to call this a win because this thing even recognizes it. So like, it feels like a driver issue. I'm going to subject you guys to one more OS attempt here. I've got a copy of Debian 3 from 2002. My thinking is Debian was a little slower to take in drivers. This thing is from 2001 or so, 2000. So hopefully by 03, they had drivers that would support this older guy. I'm going to perform a full install of that. And if that doesn't work, we'll have a PCMCIA Consolation prize to take a look at. Well, that was short-lived. This version of Debian doesn't appear to have SATA drivers, and to my aforementioned point about will to live, I don't want to deal with that today. So let's get into the Consolation PCMCIA prize. Well, I'm a little disappointed. This was going to be a pretty bitchin' setup. I have to admit, we're lucky that we even found one, and I'm really impressed that Windows sort of understood it, and we could glean a lot of information from Linux. That was pretty cool. Again, just a driver issue. I found folks online from 20-plus-year-old forum posts complaining with very similar dmessage logs about Prism 1 and that old firmware. And the suggestion seems to be to flash newer firmware onto these. But even if I could find that, I don't know if I'd want to do it because I wouldn't be able to put it back in the router, or I highly suspect that with different firmware, it's not going to work in this thing. So that would be disappointing. But I've got Windows 7 almost done installing on that thing again, and we're going to be taking a look at this. A Linksys Wireless G notebook adapter, complete in box. We'll open it up, see what's inside. It also does wireless B. This is our PCMCIA Consolation prize for the video. We'll at least get one PC card working today. That complete in box wireless G card can do wireless B too. So obviously, we're going to be needing this guy. By the way, there are some Intersil Prism drivers online for Windows XP. I did try those and they didn't work. Interestingly enough, the error message it shows about not finding the adapter is exactly the same as the Linksys stuff we saw earlier, so they must have been sharing software. Let's see what we've got. I think it's new in box, but I have been fooled by shrink wrap before. It's so fun buying the complete in box stuff, you know, when I think this was like $10 shipped or something. Start here. Run CD first before connecting your device. This makes you appreciate just how good USB is. You just really, this does look new by the way. You really just don't have to do any of this crap anymore. You just plug stuff in. Got our registration card, fill that out later. Some sort of quick start guide. Nothing special. Ooh, game adapters. We'll be covering that in a future video. Offering some of their stuff. Wireless compact flash cards. Now that's something that would be interesting. Let's open this guy up. Can I save this sticker? Do I even care? I can, look at that. Brand new. Yeah, so obviously they were making these. And in some of these older units here, they would just slap them in the router. It's for Windows XP. Maybe Windows 7 has been our problem this entire time, but we're going to try it in the Windows 7 machine. It doesn't appear to be able to read the disk. Oh my god. The heck? We're also under attack. Oh geez. Yeah, it can't read this disk. This is version 3.1, which of course is not on the archive, so it would have been nice to have been able to archive this. I'll try it in my other machine. Well, I don't know. I was able to read it on another machine and burn an ISO, and I've got it mounted here. Let's see where we get. Linksys love their special little installer UIs. Moment of truth. It's asking me, after the installer, to insert the adapter. We have a power light. It sees it. It's installing the driver, so that's good. I think we just go next. And then nothing happens. Open up the program, I guess. Here's the software. Site survey? Adapter is inactive. I don't know. I'm going to be optimistic yet again and assume this is working. I just need to choose a SSID to connect to. Let's get the other one hooked up. This will obviously work perfectly. Oh my god, it's doing the same thing as the other one. Is this the wrong power adapter? I always forget. Linksys used to be all 5 volts, and then they switched everything over to 12. So I think it's fine. That means the other one's probably fine too. Just pretend you didn't see that. Anyway, this is gonna work great. This thing doesn't seem to be able to scan. I guess I'll edit this one. Yeah, I don't think this program likes Windows 7 very much, but over in the Windows adapter settings, it knows about the Linksys Wireless G, and I think I can say connect, and there's ClabSys. Excellent signal strength from our super antennas. Yeah, even though we're connected, the software driver must drive that link light. But Windows took over, so I think we've done it, folks. We've officially connected to a network with a PC card. Well, this wasn't exactly where I was hoping this project would end up, but I'm going to still call it a win. We found one of these PC cards and we got it working. These PCMCIA cards are pretty fun to play with. I've got a few more on the way, and I think this was just a driver issue. I wasn't exactly doing myself any favors pulling one of these out of a router. We'll have more PC card stuff in the future, and a word of warning. A lot of the time, because of the small, thin form factor, they would have a dongle. So this would slide into the computer and some sort of cord was coming out of it for your modem or Ethernet or whatever the case may be. And it'll be very common that you can find one of the cards, but not the dongle, which renders the card useless. So just watch out for that. This kind of gave me some flashbacks of dealing with Linux wireless adapters back in the day. Yeah, I could sit down, get Linux on this machine and mess around with this for hours and hours. I might someday, you know, crack a few beers and do that. I don't know if I'll film it, but I'll have an update if I do. But yeah, I've been there, done that. I was there when it was written. I don't need to do it again. I was pretty ecstatic just to be able to identify this thing in Linux and see it, and Windows recognized it as well. I hope you enjoyed following along. Sorry about the screen capture quality. I couldn't get this thing to output VGA to my capture card. But if you like stuff like this and want to support the channel, you can check me out on Patreon. I try to post behind the scenes type footage, early releases, that sort of thing. Please consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.